Hello, our amazing listeners of Neurocareers doing the impossible. It's your podcast host, Dr. Milena Krastenskaya, or simply Dr. K. And I'm excited to welcome you to the second season of our podcast, exploring entrepreneurial careers in neuroscience and neurotechnologies. Have you ever wondered what it takes to transform brain science into groundbreaking products and services? Are you curious about the fearless visionaries who bridge the gap between neuroscience and entrepreneurship to change people's life and reshape our world? Are you ready to explore how to navigate the uncharted waters of neurotech entrepreneurship? In season 2, we're diving deep into the world of entrepreneurial ventures in neuroscience and neurotechnologies. If you are looking to create an immediate impact and translate your neuroscience and neurotech ideas into innovative services that truly make a difference in the world, this season is tailor made for you. Join us and learn from the best in the field about succeeding in the entrepreneurial journey in neuroscience and neurotechnology where innovation meets impact. We've got an incredible lineup of guests who are not only shaped their careers but have also made a profound impact on the field. Throughout this season, we'll explore the captivating stories of visionaries who've risen to the challenge, who've turned obstacles into opportunities, and who've innovated in ways that are changing the landscape of neurocareers. So, whether you are a seasoned professional in the field, an inspiring entrepreneur, or simply curious about the intersection of science and business in this ever evolving arena, the season promises inspiration, education, and a glimpse into the exciting future of neurocareers. I am Dr. Milena Krastenskaya, the founder of the Institute of Neuroapproaches, where I help people establish successful careers in neuroscience and neurotechnologies through career coaching and education. So let's dive into the entrepreneurial journeys that are shaping the future of neuroscience and neurotechnologies together. Tune in now into the thrilling episode number 76. Dear Neurocareers podcast listeners, today we're introducing you to Dr. Greta Preatoni, a visionary neuroengineering PhD graduate from ETH Zurich. She is on a mission to turn cutting edge research into practical solutions for real world problems. Dr. Preatoni is co-founder of MYNERVA, a groundbreaking startup dedicated to revolutionizing the treatment of diabetic neuropathy. This chronic and debilitating condition affects millions worldwide, and MyNerva's innovative device, driven by artificial intelligence and neurostimulation, aims to provide relief and enhance the quality of life for those in need. With a remarkable team by her side, Dr. Preatoni is taking this revolutionary device from the lab to the market. Whether you are curious about their groundbreaking technology, dealing with the complexities of diabetic neuropathy, or a healthcare professional eager to explore their work, Dr. Preatoni has a wealth of experience and knowledge to provide you with. She is passionate about sharing how MyNerva is making a positive impact in the lives of individuals facing diabetic neuropathy. Let's join her on this exciting conversation. Welcome, Greta. It's a great pleasure to have you today on our podcast. And thank you for meeting with us at this late time of the day. I know it's already late and you might be tired. And that's why our listeners and I especially appreciate your willingness to come and talk to us. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Milena. Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm super excited about today.
Thank you. Can you tell our listeners where you are joining us from, just to get a feeling from what part of the world?
I'm joining today from the snowy and cold Zurich in Switzerland, where I live since the last 5 years. I love it here.
Wonderful. And can you tell our listeners what are you doing in the field of neurotechnologies? What is the company? What is the main goal that you are trying to accomplish?
Absolutely, with pleasure. So, MYNERVA is, yes, an ETH spinoff, and we developed this medical device that is able to artificially restore the sense of touch and decrease pain in people that are living with diabetic neuropathy. We do this by using a combination of neurostimulation, completely non invasive. So, we don't need the surgery for the patients, and artificial intelligence. So how we developed and designed the device was through years of research to really understand, the positioning of the electrodes, the intensity of the current that we need to deliver, the calibration process. So all of this took a lot of time, a lot of clinical trials, a lot of testing. But I'm happy that today it led to this great startup called MYNERVA, where, currently we are not a lot of people. We are 5 people, but we're fast growing.
Mhm. Yes. In general, when we listen about what's going on in the field of neurotech, when applicable to clinical populations, most often we hear about restoring movement. Let's say for people who are unable to move, people after stroke, some also applications in brain surgery. However, we don't hear much about neuropathy, diabetic neuropathy. It's really a new solution for people with this type of disorder, with this condition. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about what diabetic neuropathy is, how prevalent it is, and what is the main problem these patients are dealing with?
Yes, absolutely. And yes, you're completely right. Typically, diabetic neuropathy is not such a known pathology, but it's extremely surprising seeing the amount of patients that suffer from this condition. Indeed, if we take only diabetic neuropathy, particularly diabetes, we have 500 million patients in the world. And neuropathy, which at its core essence is damage of the nerves, happens in 50% of these patients. And basically, the symptoms of diabetic neuropathy are two. First of all, the loss of sensations. So the patients can't feel their feet anymore. And this is not just an unpleasant condition, but it can also create a fivefold increased risk of falling, lose of balance, and most importantly, diminishing the quality of life of patients. And it's extremely associated with depression and anxiety. And on the other side, it creates also chronic pain. And chronic pain doesn't happen in all these 50% of the diabetic patients. It typically happens in 30% of them. And this is the reason why sometimes diabetic neuropathy is not diagnosed right away, because pain is the first reason for the patients to seek for medical attention. So these are patients that typically do get the diagnosis of diabetic neuropathy, while all of the other patients that have only in brackets sensory loss, they think usually that this is a normal aging procedure, while actually it's not. And how we can actually help these patients, of course, we can use the MYNERVA device once it will be on the market. But before, it's extremely important that these patients do routine checks to really understand the nerve conduction velocity of their nerves and whether something is going in the wrong direction, do some monofilaments test to understand if the sensations that they're having are normal or if they are losing them.
Thank you so much. And the next question is about current approaches to treat these symptoms. What is the current state of care for these patients?
Yeah, so it highly depends on the country. Based on different countries, there is a different patient journey. I'll talk about the ones that are mostly used. So typically these patients, and I focus here on diabetic neuropathy, because neuropathy can be caused also by other pathologies. It can be caused even by chemotherapy or COVID. But I'll focus now on diabetic neuropathy. So in this case, patients are typically followed by an endocrinologist or a general practitioner because of the problems related to diabetes. And once they start developing chronic pain or loss of sensations, they typically get prescribed with pain medications. An alternative could be that they get sent directly to a neurologist, because once they develop neuropathy, then this becomes a problem of the nerves. And the neurologist there has two options. On one side, again, he or she can prescribe medications for pain. And if you look at the guidelines that are out there, all the guidelines say that opioids are not the first line of treatments. But if you then go and look at what's been really done into clinical routine, 87% of the patients with diabetic neuropathy get prescribed with opioids. And this is a huge problem because opioid creates addiction and severe problems, nausea, constipation. So this is a real problem. And on the other side, for the loss of sensations, neurologists don't really know what to do up to date because we don't have treatments for sensory loss. So what they do is either nothing or they can prescribe some physiotherapy sessions. But the physiotherapy has the big problem of not being able to restore the sensations while it just provides some compensatory strategies. And this, of course, creates the problem of a very low compliance from the patients, because being that they don't see the benefits of going to the physiotherapist, they just stop going.
Yeah. So if you would identify the major problem in current approaches, what would that be?
So I'd say that the first big problem is the opioids. We've heard this a lot. It's very big in the United States, but not only there, the opioid crisis. So it's obvious then when you tell that you have pain from a patient, the patient, if the doctor doesn't prescribe the opioids, they will probably just change doctor. So the change in the treatment has to come from the doctors themselves, not from the patients. And this is the first big problem that I see. The second problem is, of course, that we don't have solutions yet for the artificial restoration of the sense of touch. So this is where new technologies and the combination, of course, of technology, science, neuroscience can create products such as the one that MYNERVA will be able to give to the patients to be able to tackle the loss of sensations. And the third one is a problem with the information of the patients and the miscommunication, because diabetic neuropathy, one of the main causes is also the lifestyle of the people, because the more you neglect your dietary conditions, what you eat, how you move, how much activity you do, then this will impact on the probability that you will develop neuropathy and on the severity of the disease.
Thank you. Now, can you tell what does MYNERVA do? How does it address this problem? And probably problem number two, like what is the solution that you are providing?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've developed is a neuroprosthesis that is being worn as a comfortable sock. And what we do is we have sensors that capture pressure-related information. And this information, while the patient is walking, gets sent and translated into electrical pulses that are delivered through electrodes inside of the sock. So through the algorithms that we use and thanks to the positioning of the electrodes, we are able to artificially restore the sense of touch directly under the plantar part of the foot, even though we stimulate on a higher level. So where the nerves are still healthy, but the perception is perceived directly under the plantar part of the foot. And this is what we can do for the sensory feedback. While for the pain reduction, it's actually the same approach. Sometimes people get confused when I say this because I think they think you have to switch it on to mode 1 or mode 2 to get the 2 benefits, but actually you can have 2 benefits all in one. And the second benefit, of course, I've already said this, is pain decrease. And also here, sometimes it might be confusing if you're not completely, aware of what neurostimulation can do. So I usually make this very basic example of why we can provide pain release. So think about when you bump your knee somewhere. The first thing that you want to do is rub the area. But if you think about it, it doesn't make any sense that you would want to rub the area that you just hurt. Now, the reason why you want to do this is because by touching that area, touch activates large diameter fibers that travel to the dorsal horn of your spinal cord. There they activate these little inhibitory interneurons, which inhibit the pain pathway, therefore resulting in a lowered perception of pain. Now, our device, thanks to the positioning of the electrodes and the algorithms that we use, is able to activate exactly those large diameter fibers, therefore activating this whole pain decrease pathway.
What becomes available with those socks for patients? What results they can expect?
So it highly depends on the starting point of the patient, but what you can expect in a very basic way is you will walk much better. So you will have long steps, you will not fall, you will not have problems in losing balance. I've had patients where we tested the system also that even standing, they were keeping their feet in a strange position for maybe a few minutes, and then they didn't notice it. And once they moved, they were falling because the foot was, in that position for 2 minutes. And they didn't even know that it was hurting because they couldn't feel it. And so for sure, you can expect these benefits on the walking side. And then, of course, you can expect a drastic reduction in pain. We've had very various results. So some patients, we had 100% pain decrease after just one stimulation of 20 minutes. We've had other patients who had a more mild pain decrease. But in general, we saw a very high percentage of pain decrease all over the patients. So these tests have been done just by 1 day of stimulation. I cannot fully disclose all the results because the paper is not out yet for IP reasons. But what I can say is that the results are extremely promising, even if we had this just 1 day of stimulation. So our next clinical trial, which will be done in 2025, and if any patients or doctors are listening to this, we're open to patient recruitment, is going to be a longitudinal trial where we're going to give the device to the patients at home for a few weeks to be tested. And this will allow us to see also what are the long-term benefits of the device. And also if we can have, hopefully, some not only assistive but therapeutic effects on the nerve itself.
I'm very curious about how did this idea came to place to have a sock, not just attaching some sensors, electrodes for stimulation, but creating a sock that people just can put on their feet and have the stimulation going. How did it happen?
So it was definitely a long process. So Everything started in the neuroengineering laboratory, which is held by Professor Stanislav Popovic. And he is an expert in neurostimulation all over the world. He started actually with amputees, even doing invasive approaches. He published in Nature and Science and whatsoever. And I was doing my PhD there. And the feedback from the patients from the trial that he did was that there was a need to have a non-invasive approach to get back these sensations. Therefore, it was, of course, a very long process to arrive to what we have today, many iterations, many people and team effort. But we've decided to build something that didn't change what the patients were doing in their everyday life. Patients that are using a medical device don't want people to see that they are wearing a medical device. So the easiest thing would be a sock, because a sock, anyways, you need to wear it every day. So might as well use a sock that takes away your symptoms.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm curious, I'm trying to imagine the device. Is it powered by a battery? Is it being charged? You need to charge the socks to wear. How long that charge will be maintained? So, can you give some specifics?
So yes, definitely. The sock is rechargeable. You charge it by night mostly. Depends on also the usage that you want to do. If you want to put it also at night, you can use it at night and charge it during the day. So that's not a problem. What we're seeing is that probably patients are not going to have the stimulation, for 12 hours a day, but they're going to use it when they walk or when they have a pain attack. So you might even not have it charged every night. It highly depends on the usage that you have on the sock. If you use it 8 hours per day, you will probably need to charge it every day.
Can you wash the sock? Because to wash the socks is important. How do you do that?
No, you keep it. No, I'm kidding. Yes, of course, you can wash the sock. So basically, you take like the core unit of the device, which cannot be washable, and you wash the rest of the sock. Now we are having around 80 washing cycles. So as soon as you finish this 80 washing cycles, you will purchase as a consumable another pair of socks.
And of course, there are different sizes of socks that people can purchase. Mhm.
Yes.
What is the advisable timing? How long should people wear those socks during the day?
So this is a very good question to which we want to answer with the clinical trial that we will do next year. I can, say on top of my mind, based on the results that we've already had, that probably already 30 minutes of stimulation a day will be enough. But probably if you walk the whole day, you might want to use it a little bit more. So I can say that to see the results that we saw, half an hour of stimulation will do it.
hmm And is it possible to insert it well into the shoe? Because I imagine that sensors, they a little bit expand the foot. So
Yeah.
can people use their usual footwear or they need to
Oh, yeah.
purchase something additional? Yeah, no
No, no.
problem.
Yeah, they can use absolutely their shoes, so there's no problem.
hmm Yes. So it looks like a very promising device, and definitely it can make a huge difference in people's lives. You mentioned that it took many iterations to get to this point. So, just to provide that perspective, how long ago did everything start? What were those iterations? What were the complexities, challenges of this process? Just to see all the hard work that was put into this project.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a very long process. It started, I think, around 2018. A lot of people really worked on this. We've had people that are still involved in the startup, such as Andrea Cimolato and Giacomo Valle. They're great and they've accompanied me through the whole process. but it was really, also students from the laboratory coming and helping and doing some testing with our guidance and our support. And most of the efforts were for sure in the software part and in the design of the sock. Design of the sock, I mean the positioning of the electrodes, how many you need, what material, how big they have to be, what shape do they need to have, what is the material of the sock, how comfortable it is. And on the other side, the stimulator part. So what stimulator do we need to use? What functionalities does it need to have? But then we needed to program it. And on the software part, which is also one of our core in-house knowledges, that was really a long process because we've tried different types of algorithms, different types of models to try to achieve the best possible outcomes. So I'd say that these were the main efforts. But all of this, of course, is accompanied by the clinical trials. And when I say clinical trials, it's not just testing the patients, because testing with the patients, to which we are infinitely grateful, and also to the doctors that helped us in the whole process, was a huge amount of work. Not only, being there, calibrating the system, testing it, doing the different types of tasks, but then the data analysis, post-processing, but also what comes before the clinical trials, the ethical approvals, submitting it, writing the ethics, getting the approvals, maintaining all the systems up to date, protecting the data, encrypting everything. So it's a lot of things that go beyond what we have today.
Yeah. From all those things that you mentioned, what was the most challenging part for you and how did you solve it?
The most challenging one for, I'd say, for the team in general. I can then talk also about my specific challenges, but for the team, I'd probably say the software component.
Mhm. And maybe you can provide some specifics. What, in software development was the most challenging part?
Yeah, so as I was saying before, one of the components of our system is the artificial intelligence component, and that requires a lot of testing, a lot of data, which means a lot of time and a lot of trial and error. That part, I think, is really fundamental for us because it helps in the calibration process, which today, if you don't have an optimized calibration process, it means that it could take, even half an hour a day. And if you have to calibrate your system half an hour a day, there's no way that this thing can actually get to the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned quite a few innovations that are included in this device. And of course, this new AI algorithms that you've used, and of course, sensors themselves. Maybe you can provide some details on the innovations that you integrated, technological innovations, neuroengineering innovations, neuroscience innovations that you integrated into this product.
Absolutely. So I'll talk about the ones that I can without disclosing any IP aspects. So for sure, one of the major breakthroughs, which is quite simple, but if you think about it, it's really something great, is the wearability of the system. Because if you have a pain attack while you're in the supermarket, you don't want to go running back home to wear the system and get the stimulation that you need. You might as well just take your iPhone, Samsung, or whatever you have in your pockets and press a button to start the therapy and continue doing your groceries. So this, on the simpler side, I think that is one of the great advantages that our system can have. In terms of the breakthroughs from the neuroscience part, I think it's really a combination of the different theories that we're applying, the gate control theory for the pain part, the fact that we can, and I think this is also what really got me extremely passionate in the beginning, is the fact that we can artificially restore the sense of touch. If you talk about it like this, it looks like a science fiction movie, but in reality, it's really like this. We have videos of the patients that are blindfolded, acoustically isolated, and you touch their feet with a like a brush, and they feel nothing. Then, without touching their feet, by activating our system, they say that they feel the heel, they feel the big toe. So it's really something that for me is mind blowing, and also for the patients that tried it. And then the third big, I'd say, breakthrough, but again, I cannot go too much into the details, is the artificial intelligence component of this, because it really helps a process that before was extremely cumbersome, which is the calibration, to go down to just a few minutes. So this means that a procedure that before you had to go in a hospital, have a specialized nurse, put the electrodes on you, and choose the right intensity, choose the right positioning, had to do. Now you can simply do it at home while you're watching a TV show.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And you mentioned stimulation from the past studies that are coming out, I think, including your group. There is information about varying stimulation parameters to provide really natural sensations for people. I don't think many people are realizing that you can provide different type of sensations with the stimulation. Maybe you can just open a little bit that window for people who are not aware of that, what stimulation can provide and how can we make the stimulation feel more natural to people.
Absolutely. So yes, there are different ways that you can stimulate by fine-tuning the parameters, the pulse width, the amplitude, the frequency of your stimulation, and you can choose what you want to do with the stimulation. You can have biomimetic algorithms, which is a very fancy word to say that you modulate your stimulation parameters to try to mimic in a more close way how our neurons are actually transmitting the signals. So, when you go inside of the nerves of the patients, of course, it's not like fixed frequency, fixed amplitude, and fixed pulse width. The current flows in ways that we still haven't completely understood. And you can have parameters that are modulated. On the other side, you can, for example, have one parameter fixed and modulate the other ones to try to mimic as closely as possible the pattern of the nerves, but not to make your system too computationally cumbersome, which means, you have to think of also very practical things, power, battery, but also the fact that the perception is extremely different from person to person. So you want something that can help as many people as possible and in the best way possible. So this is also where our calibration process comes into place, because each calibration process is specifically done for the subject. So the stimulation parameters that you might have could be, and 99.9 periodic percent are different than what I would have and that what I would perceive as natural and pleasant.
Mhm. And do I understand correctly that people will be also to modulate the parameters within certain limits, of course, because it's a clinical device?
Exactly. Yeah. So, being a medical device, you have to respect a lot of different standards and ISOs. So, we already have hard coded inside the system, and we have also safety, like hardware components for the safety inside of the system, to be able that the stimulation doesn't go over certain threshold, so that it doesn't provide any safety concerns in terms of skin damage. But still, within a certain range, people are still going to be able to modulate based on what they perceive as pleasant. Also, because it's not a matter of individual perceptions, but also perceptions within the individual. What I perceive as pleasant in winter might not be the same as in summer, because in summer, my skin is a little bit more humid. So the electricity is conducted in a different way, and it might be different from what I perceive in winter, where my skin is dry.
Yes, absolutely. And also, I want to know something that I heard you mentioned, that the person can actually create the stimulation on demand. It's not that the person just put the sock in and the food into a sock and wears it the whole day with the stimulation. Actually, there is an app, yes, that will be on a person's phone, where he can or they can turn it on and off, and at the times when they need it, or at the times when turn it off when they don't. Yes,
Absolutely, yes. This is one of the prerogatives of our system. One of our really core selling proposition is the fact that the system is extremely comfortable, extremely easy to use. You can use it whenever you are, wherever you are, and how you want to use it. So we really think that a medical device that doesn't look nor feel like a medical device is really the way to go.
absolutely. And now, because we are in the Neurocareers podcast, we're speaking about careers, I would like to bring you into the past, uh, to share with our listeners, how did you get to this stage when you are already creating and testing this amazing device? How did your interest in neuroscience, neurotechnologies develop?
So I was born in Milan. No, I'm kidding. So my path was very strange. I mean, I had a very multifaceted background. I actually started my studies in psychology. My bachelor was in psychology. And I loved it. I still do love psychology. I think that we're going to have the major breakthroughs in the years to come. But already when I was there, I understood that my passion for psychology was more related to the human body, in particular there to the brain. Indeed, I remember the other day I found in my house the thesis that I did for my bachelor's, and it was the connection between neuroscience and psychology, and how psychology can actually alter the physical structures and the connections in our brain. And for me, so that was extremely interesting. So I decided to pursue my master's in neuroscience. These were both done in Italy. I did my studies in Milano. And I fell in love with neuroscience. I think it's incredible to study the brain and to understand the human body and how we interact and how this, you know, influences also our behavior. And while I was studying neuroscience, I understood that there was a particular type of the field of neuroscience that was extremely interesting for me, which were brain-computer interfaces. So I went to a laboratory to do my thesis, a laboratory in Padua, and I did a master thesis on brain computer interfaces for paralyzed people to control robots with their minds, essentially. And I completely fell in love with this, and this gave me a little bit of engineering background. I'm definitely not an engineer. I struggled a lot in that period because I had no coding knowledge whatsoever. So I tried to learn it a little bit by myself. And I was helped also by the PhD students at that time that were there. And this gave me a little bit of basic to do some data analysis, understand brain waves, and how to build something with my hands. I still remember when I was doing my master thesis that there was this conference at my university about artificially restoring the sense of touch, held by Dr. Giacomo Valle, which at the time I didn't know. So I went there, and surprisingly, it was just me and another person. But I fell in love completely with the topic, and my mind was just going all everywhere. So after the lecture, I mean, it was three people. I don't know. Still today, I was shocked that there were so few people. I asked to Giacomo to, I've been always very straightforward. So I asked him to go for lunch, the three people that were at the conference. It's not really a conference, it was more a lecture, of course. And we went to have lunch, and I asked him a lot of questions, and I was super interested. Then a few months forward, I was in a conference in Pisa. And just by chance, I saw him again there. So had finished my master's studies at that point. So I ran to him and I was like, how are you doing? What's been going on? Where are you? And at that time, he was doing his postdoc at the neuroengineering laboratory here at ETH. So I was like, okay, you need to give me an opportunity to talk with the professor and try to convince him to take, a psychologist, less neuroscientist, to one of the top leading engineering schools in the world. So they did. We did a call. I think they were not honestly convinced in the beginning, but I completely understand them because, I was a psychologist in theory. So I told them, okay, let's do like this, guys. I'll come for a few months for free and I'll work there. If we see that you like how I work and that you see a possibility to collaborate together, then I'll do my PhD there. And then in the end, I convinced them. I don't know how, but I convinced them. I'm happy I did, and this led me to do the PhD there. And then I've already said before how the whole process went.
Yeah, that's amazing. What this situation reminded me of. Some people are saying that when they don't get the audience they expected, they think that this lecture was a failure. Yes, and actually, it can be such a great treasure.
Yes.
That lecture was just, two listeners in the audience now resulted in
Yeah.
absolutely new treatment opportunities for just millions of people
Yeah.
worldwide. Uh, uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
uh,
I can definitely say with confidence that a lecture with 3 people changed my life. So I'm happy about that.
that's amazing. So, what was exciting for you in this possibility to restore the sense of touch? What really ignited your interest during that lecture?
So I'd say that it's a combination of 2 things. So the first one is that when Giacomo was presenting, he showed a lot of videos of patients not even being able to walk or finding extremely easy tasks to be extremely difficult. And I really felt the difficulty for the patients. And I thought to myself, can you imagine living your whole life like this? This was shocking. And the second thing was that it looked like something that was so out of this world, it could not be achievable. And seeing that it was actually feasible with the neurotechnologies, I said, there is no way that I'm not going to do this in my life. This is too cool to be true.
Yes. And so you got into a lab, and I think you made a very fair proposal. Yes, I will work for free. Have a look at me, and then make a decision. I think very brave, very fair, and it worked. Yes.
Yeah, it paid off.
But it also was, like you said, a psychologist with some initial knowledge about engineering and programming coming into the neuroengineering lab. I'm sure there were many challenges that you were going through. Can you name
Mhm.
some of them? And also, how did you solve them?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, there were many challenges. I remember the first period, which the first period is probably the first 4 years. I'm being a little bit exaggerate here, but in the first few months, I was really trying to prove that I was worth the position because I knew in my mind that one of the requirements was to enter ETH Zurich was to be an excellent programmer and a great engineer, and I was not that. But I had a lot of good things on my side. For example, the neuroscience knowledge. You can be a great engineer, but when you want to do neurotechnologies, if you don't have neuroscience knowledge, that will not take you too far. So I tried to work as much as I could on my programming skills, but not trying to neglect my nature, which in basic is not to be an engineer. My figure is much more of a round person. So I can do all the data analysis that I want. I can do some very basic programming, but the skills of the neuroscience part, the clinical trials, even the social skills, organizing stuff, and trying to see the big picture of how we could help the patients were something that always distinguished my profile. One of my biggest dreams since I ever remembered was to be an entrepreneur. So to be an entrepreneur, having programming skills is definitely something that can help you, but it's definitely not the main component there. You need to have a bigger vision, a longer term vision, and try to understand what the patient wants, not really try to build something that is technologically cool. You need to have a product that the people are actually going to use. First of all, to help them. And second of all, to have your company being successful so that you can help them in other ways with other products, have other helping other pathologies.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. So basically, the lab acquired a visionary. Yes, the person who had a vision where to head, where to bring all this accumulated knowledge.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I always say that it's really a team effort. I mean, I would never put myself in the condition of saying that I was the only one, because I really was not. There was Giacomo, the professor, Andrea, the students, the other PhD students. Everybody had a role in where MYNERVA is today. So I'm forever grateful of the path that they've allowed me to do. And I'm grateful also to myself for having chosen that path that took me here today.
Yes, and also that you were still faithful to your own strengths. To being entrepreneur, having a bigger vision. Yes, like you said, it was important for you to learn and do some programming, do signal analysis, but you also kept those main strengths in you as the main strengths. You didn't put those away.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
which is very important. So you already told us a story how your interest in neuroscience, neurotechnologies developed. And now you mentioned that you also always had that passion for entrepreneurship. Can you tell us a little bit how did that evolve? Where did this come from in you?
Yes, of course. So I was born in a very business oriented family, very business oriented family, and very old style. So my father is a very conservative and sees the family as the men work and take the money home, and the women take care of the family. And I grew up with this mentality. I was the first daughter after five sons. So I was the first to test out this condition of how it would go. And I grew up thinking that, this was my path, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. My mother has always dedicated her whole life to her family. And I can definitely say that my mother is probably the best person in the world. Yeah, probably everybody says
Of
this, but
course, yeah.
I'm convinced to my core. And and when I was growing up, so I was convinced about this. But when I was a little bit older, maybe around 10 years old already, I was like, not sure if this is the right path for me. I think I want to do something else. So yeah, my parents noticed that I had a very particular personality. I was very extroverted. I knew what I wanted. I was very decisive, and nothing could stop me. I wanted to do my own things. So I decided that I wanted to pursue these studies, but I grew up anyways, talking at breakfast, lunch, dinner about business, because in my family, my father is an entrepreneur. So probably that's where also I got the mentality of thinking about the long term vision of things and trying to see things from really a concrete perspective. And I'm happy that I took an academic path because the scientific approach, anyways, I feel like is extremely important to be an entrepreneur. One of the things that I like about the type of entrepreneurship that I'm pursuing is that I try to adopt the scientific approach to the hypothesis that I have about the business that we're building. And this really allows you not to be fooled by your own perceptions and your own beliefs, but to really try to see things in an objective manner. So yeah, everything started really from when I was born, and I decided that I didn't want to be a mom, and I wanted to do something more.
Yeah, that's amazing. And can you provide maybe an example of how scientific approach helps you in business development, in being entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I think the very basic thing is that with the scientific approach, anything that the other people say, you need to double fact check the resources where this comes from. So whenever, even when you talk to suppliers or you talk to people that are trying to sell you things or convince you about something, if you have a scientific approach, you try to ask why they're saying certain things and where did they get that information from, and you go back to the roots and you really understand if what they're saying is just their own belief or if it's based on facts. And this is one approach. The other one is also regarding the market penetration and your business model. To do this, you need to do a lot of interviews. You need to talk with patients, with doctors. And there, the scientific approach allows you to do the same thing, allows you to understand whether what they're saying is their own opinion or if it's clinical practice, if it's something that's currently being done, if it's, something that you can apply to the general population, or if it's more of a personal thing.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And now you got into the lab in Zurich, and you started working on your PhD project, which was related to restoring sensation. When did this long-term vision developed in you? When did it start?
I don't recall exactly the day, but I can tell you for sure the period. And it was when we were testing the patients because we saw the results and we said, okay, we found the magic sauce. To be completely honest, this perception, this vision of trying to get something in the hands of the patients has always been there in me. But whether it was this or something else was still, a vague idea. Then when we tested the patients, we talked to each other and we were like, okay, yeah, this is it.
Mhm, mhm. Yes. Can you now tell us how was this developing your entrepreneurial venture? What were your steps on getting to the stage where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. So in the beginning, as I said, it was mostly research, a very scientific approach, a lot of testing. Then once we've decided, okay, I want to do this, it was more, okay, translate to the other brain and go into the commercial part and approach. We did some fundraising and we went a little bit around and we applied to the VIS Zurich Translational Center, which is a joint accelerator between ETH Zurich and the University of Zurich. This is a incredible accelerator that not only supports the startups with economical funds, but also in the product development, also with the offices. We have now our own offices, so we're not based in the lab anymore. I'm currently now in our offices, which are very nice. We have a very nice view over Zurich. We see the lake, it's great. And we officially entered in the VIS in September of 2023 and we will stay here for the product development until we enter the market. The timeline will be very dependent on how everything goes. For a medical device, not only there's the product development, but you need to get the certifications, FDA, CE certification. So it will be still some time, but we hope to get this as soon as possible in the hands of the patients.
Of course. What are the benefits of joining such an accelerator program that you joined?
So for sure, the economical support, we don't need anymore to use funds from grants. I mean, sometimes we still do need to apply because some of the costs are not covered, but most of the support is provided. But also we have access to several platforms which help us in different things. For example, we have a platform, the Beta platform, which is composed by more than 16 engineers, highly specialized in the development of medical devices that help us in the development of the MYNERVA device. And then we have another platform focused mostly on quality and regulatory aspects. And this is really helpful because, when you get out of the research, you go into this black hole of quality things. And if you're not used to it, or if you don't onboard right away a quality expert, it might be really tough to navigate this quality and regulatory aspects without the support of somebody. And finally, they help also in the entrepreneurial part. We have at least weekly meetings where we can ask anything that we want, and they have experienced entrepreneurs. They have people that have did the startups, did exits in every field. So their support is really immense.
Absolutely. And what are the requirements for joining accelerator like this? What the company needs to have in order to be able to join?
So for this particular accelerator, you need to be a spin-off either of ETH or of the University of Zurich. And you need to be focused on one of the three areas that they focus on, which are regenerative medicine, robotics, or bionics. The basic concept is really that you provide some very strongly scientific, strong device or concept that you've already done your testing, that you're already advanced in the product development phase, and then they help you to bridge the valley of death. So their core value proposition is to help startups in the transition from science to the market.
What is your timeline? When do you expect have your device available for people?
We still have to see, as I was saying before, we have an internal timeline, but I don't want to give false hopes and expectations at this stage. So I'll keep this to myself for now. But I can say that we're going to try to do everything as fast as we can.
Mhm. Thank you. And we see tremendous innovations that are happening right now in neurotechnologies and technologies in general, computer sciences. What innovations inspire you in general in your work, and maybe something that you are looking forward to implementing in the future?
So everything that's related, it's going to sound a bit cheesy, but it's really what makes me really passionate. Everything that's related to using technology and science to improve the life of people gets me extremely excited. Particularly, I'm never going to leave the passion for brain computer interfaces. So, even this type of technology, it's not a brain computer interface, but it's a body computer interface that helps people to get back something that otherwise they could not have back, the sense of touch. So something that excites me would be possibly to turn into brain solutions for this, for example. They're extremely complex, so we'll see if we get there. But this is for sure something that makes me very excited. And also anything that concerns other pathologies where we can artificially restore the sense of touch to scale up our product would be great, such as a stroke, spinal cord injury, fibromyalgia, carpal tunnel syndrome, you name it. There are so many pathologies that we could help, and I really cannot wait to get there.
Absolutely. And you also mentioned at the very beginning of our talk that there are many other neuropathies, types of neuropathies, not necessarily diabetes related. So, do you think your product that you are developing also will have possibility to be used in those other types of neuropathies?
Yes, so there is one of the biggest ones is the chemotherapy-induced neuropathy. Then you have COVID-induced neuropathy. You have idiopathic neuropathy, where you don't know why, but you develop neuropathy. And these are, I'd say, the major ones. And then there are many different ones that can be caused even by traumatic components or infections that you have in your body. So, as soon as a pathology develops, translates into neuropathy, the concept that we have now with our system can be applied.
Mhm. And I'm also curious about the hands, the sensations of the hands. Does neuropathy also results in the lost sensations of the hands in addition to the feet, or there is preponderance for more feet-related neuropathy?
So it typically starts with the feet, but then it goes to the hands once it progresses. We already have prototypes also for the gloves, so that's something very nice. Yeah, so all of the patients start developing at the feet, and then it goes to the hands. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why you answered already my question. I want to ask, why did you start with the feet? Because this is the first pathology that develops.
Yeah, exactly. Some patients never develop it in the hands, but when they develop it, it means that it's really, really severe. So a solution is really even more needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, our podcast listen people and who want to develop startup or develop startups and just want to hear how other people are doing this, and also those people who want to work at startups.
Mhm.
So let's share some information for those of our listeners. Now, when you are looking for people whom you want to work with you, what are the main qualities that you are looking for in those potential employees?
So sometimes it highly depends on the position, because for some positions you really need to have specific skills. But aside of these positions, the majority, 90% of the positions are for people who are passionate about the project and about where it's going to go. Working in a startup is risky because you don't know where the startup is going to end. We are in the good condition that we are now inside of this accelerator, which will support us for years. But still, there is the risk of who knows where we will be in the next years. So what we need here are people that are not here to, become today millionaires or that are here to do their job and then go home. I want people that call me, or if they are walking on the street and they have an idea, they call me and they say, but did you think about that? But what if we did this? What if we changed this? So what could happen? This is what excites me also, because I think that the biggest thing about working in startups, the coolest thing is how dynamic the environment is. You can do a lot of different things and you can get support from a lot of different people, but it's not repetitive. So you don't have certainty about what you're going to do. repetitive, sometimes has a little bit of a negative feeling to it, like, yeah, you don't want to do repetitive 9 to 5 jobs. This is not what I mean. What I mean is really uncertainty. You don't know today what you're going to do tomorrow, most probably, and you need to be okay with that.
Mhm. Yes, that dynamic nature of the work, and which also necessitates learning all the time, basically, because you might be doing a different tasks the next day or the day after.
Exactly.
How do you choose people based on their application? What people can do in their applications for your job positions to stand out?
So something that I've discovered and that I think is great, the few candidates that did this, even though I asked, but nobody did this, it just a couple of the persons did this, or really stood out to me. And it's a video. So a presentation of yourself, you can send your CV, but what I do is I have a folder with 30 CVs, and I'm probably gonna forget about how cool your experience is. If you talk about yourself, and I would highly suggest in the video to make it short, 2 maximum 3 minutes. You talk a little bit about your experience, and for your experience, always say how this is related to the company in which you're applying. So why the skills that you got in that particular position are going to be useful to the growth objectives of the company in which you're applying. This is really great. And in the end, say your motivation. Why are you applying? Why, be honest, why are you not happy about the job that you're doing right now? Because I am a very straightforward person. Maybe this doesn't apply to all of the people in the world, but if somebody is really straightforward and tells me, look, I don't like my team members, so I want to change because I don't like to go to job anymore, so I'm applying for another position, and then show me why you're passionate about the mission that MYNERVA is having, because that's really going to stand out.
Mhm. I think that's a great idea. With the video, I love it. I love it. It really, I think, can make a huge difference.
Yes.
Now we know that the pace of startups is very different from a usual academic environment. What can you recommend for people who are coming to you from the academia, who finished their PhD, maybe did their postdoc, and now want to work with you? What would be your recommendations to really make that transition as smoothly as possible?
I'd say buckle up, because we've had amazing engineers joining the team that came out of exactly this situation. And it's another word, it's another thing. You have to think completely different. It's not anymore hypothesis testing, data analysis and results, and you write the paper. It's okay, today I decide that I want this supplier, but tomorrow the supplier doesn't answer the phone for 2 days. Okay, I'm going to change and I'm going to go to another supplier. Today I wrote this code, but I made this decision about the device, so my code doesn't apply. So my code goes completely, I eliminate my code and I have to redo it from scratch. And you have to be okay with this, because otherwise you go crazy. And I've seen this in the beginning, also with the people that have joined the team, that it's quite a big change. But I think that as soon as you understand the benefits of having this approach, it has, much more fun to it, rather than a more static approach as the one that's in academia. I love the academic approach. As I said before, scientific approach is great, but you need to know how to apply it in startups, and you need to be dynamic. You need to be okay with change, with risk, and with being hyperactive.
Yes. What would be like three main differences that people need to be prepared for when they're coming from academia to industry?
So, three main differences would be, I'd say, first of all, I said this before, but I'm going to say it again, uncertainty. Uncertainty is really, really a big component. The second one is pace, as you said. So you need to be okay with more than pace, maybe flexibility. I think this is both a pro and a con. This also happens in academia, but in startups even more. You need to be prepared that sometimes you just have to work like crazy. But other times, if the previous night you worked until 2 o'clock in the morning, you can come at 11, 12 o'clock. It's fine, So be able to do this. And the third one probably is the environment, the competition that you have. So there's a lot of competition also in academia. But in academia, I feel this is my personal perspective. It's more on a personal side. So, you want to publish a lot of papers, the best papers in the best journals. In startups, the competition is with the market. And that's another beast. So you have to make sure that what you're developing not only is better than your competitors, but it will also be used by the patients. So this is goes back also to something that I said before regarding the difference between being an amazing engineer and being an amazing engineer in a startup. You cannot just develop the best product that you can, but you need to develop the best product that you can that the patient will use. And to do this, you need to do a shift in mentality.
Mhm. And who, in your opinion, does better in switching from academia to industry? What qualities do people possess? Or maybe what approaches do they use to really transition smoothly from one to another?
I think there is one key magic factor, which is being able to see the big picture. If you see the big picture, it will be easy for you to do this transition because as much of you as you've seen it when you were in academia and you know that the big picture was the research, the publications, and achieving the scientific results that you wanted. In industry and in startups, the big picture is the product that you're developing. So as long as you maintain a big picture mentality, it's just a shift of focus.
Mhm. And one question many people are asking, do I need a PhD to get into the industry, to work at a startup? Or is master's degree enough? What is your take on this?
Oh, no, absolutely. You don't need a PhD. For sure, not for a startup. I can't talk too much about an industry because I haven't yet done a major company. So we're still a startup. But for a startup, you definitely don't need a PhD. You need to be a dynamic person with a lot of passion that is happy to support and being very propositive about sharing new ideas.
Mhm. Do you also offer internship opportunities at your company?
Yes, we're actually starting one internship next week.
Mhm. What are your requirements for internship?
I think that for the internship, a specific background and knowledge is the best solution because internships have the advantage of probably being, very dynamic and typically an internship is a young person that wants to join a startup to know more the word. So the curiosity is there, which is always a very big plus, but they have the downside of the experience. So if you have the downside of not having a lot of experience, if you have specific experience, which for us, for example, could be experience in regulatory matters or in design or in neurostimulation, then it's easier because typically the internships you want to do a shorter period where you go very specific on a topic rather than being a jolly, because otherwise you risk the fact that the internship becomes just the person that sends emails or does the social media posts, and nobody wants it. We don't want this, and for sure the internship doesn't want it. So if you can bring some specific knowledge and apply that to our needs, that's the best thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And how can people learn more about MYNERVA, the product you're developing, about your company, and how can they connect with you?
So LinkedIn for sure is our favorite channel. You can directly reach out to me in LinkedIn. I'm always very happy to answer. We have our website now. We're completely redoing it. So by February, it should be new. But anyways, it's mynervamedical.com. So also there you have a form to contact us. And in February, when the new website will be out, you can also subscribe to our newsletter so that you can also hear from our updates. And I'd suggest also, if you wanted to come visit us in our offices here in Zurich.
That is wonderful. I would take on this opportunity when I'm there. So,
Whenever, please, we'd be happy to.
thank you. And as we're nearing the end of our podcast, what is your vision for the uh, neurotechnologies in terms of helping people, changing people's lives, let's say 50 years from now, maybe even 100 years from now? How do you see the world supported with neurotechnologies?
I think that it's going to be an exponential growth, really. So I see people having back the sense of touch, walking again after a spinal cord injury, running again after a spinal cord injury. So I'm super excited for what the future holds ahead of us. And I'll always keep an eye out for what happens because you know that this is my passion in the field of psychology mixed with neurotechnologies, because I think that really there in the future we might have some revolutions that we're still not thinking of.
Mhm. And what would you like to share with our listeners as we end our podcast? Any information, any suggestions, recommendations, anything you would like to share?
I always have this saying that you should always pursue fear. So the path that scares you the most, just go for it, because it's going to be the one that's going to give you most headaches, but also the most rewards.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you very much, Greta. It was a great pleasure to have you on our podcast. I wish you and your company all possible success. Of course, we'll be following on your updates, and I hope to have you back on our podcast when actually the product reaches the market, reaches people to see how everything has developed at that point. So.
Yeah, I'd love that, Milena. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And also, I'm looking forward to the next podcast.
Thank you very much, Greta. Dear Neurocareers podcast listeners, thank you for joining us on this incredible journey into the entrepreneurial world of neuroscience and neurotechnologies. I hope you've been inspired by the stories of those who are turning groundbreaking ideas into impactful realities. If you are looking for more guidance on succeeding in Neurocareers, book a free consultation with me, your podcast host, Dr. K, at the Institute of Neuroapproaches. So, what are you waiting for? Let's navigate the path to success in the world of neurocareers and make the impossible possible together.